Good evening. I'm Nima Rajan, and this is Forum Daily for Thursday, September 15th. We begin tonight with a special sitting of the House of Commons, where members of Parliament from all political stripes are paying tribute to the late Queen Elizabeth. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau reminded Parliament of the enduring importance of the Crown in a tribute to the late monarch in the House of Commons. Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet offered condolences to those grieving the Queen, but he says the relationship between Quebec and the Crown is thorny and cruel. Other party leaders, including Conservative head Pierre Poilievre, commemorated the Queen and her 70-year reign of service, duty, and dedication to Canada. MPs are slated to give speeches in the House to recognize the Queen's legacy in Canada throughout the day, and they might continue on Friday morning. Switching gears to the housing market, as the Canadian Real Estate Association is taking a step back from previous outlooks. The organization is cutting its forecast for home sales this year and lowering its expectations for price growth. In its latest housing market outlook, the association says it expects 532,000 properties to trade hands this year. Now, that would be down 20% from the record-breaking mark in 2021. The national average home price is forecast to rise by 4.7%. This is down from the 10.8% increase that the association predicted in June. Turning to a new academic analysis, which found that since 2010, Canada has been the target of at least 75 cyber incidents. All of these cases were by foreign digital operations of a malicious political or industrial nature. The threats range from efforts to steal COVID-19 related research to the targeting of Uyghur human rights activists. The report by researchers at the University of Quebec in Montreal found cyber espionage accounted for more than half of these episodes. Moving to Quebec now, where the first of two leaders' debates in the provincial election campaign takes place in Montreal tonight. 4 of the 5 participants will be making their debate debuts as party leaders. Only François Legault, the incumbent premier and leader of the coalition Avenir Québec, has been there before. Toronto police say books of condolence are being made available for the public to pay their respects to an officer who was shot dead this week. Constable Andrew Hong was one of 2 people killed Monday in a series of shootings across the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area. Police say the funeral for Constable Hong will be held on Wednesday. The other victim, auto shop owner Shakila Shrav, was laid to rest in Mississauga yesterday. Some big promises are being made in Saskatchewan by Indigenous Services Minister Patty Hajdu following a stabbing rampage on a First Nation there. She is promising to work with the James Smith Cree Nation on community policing and a new treatment center. This comes more than a week after a series of deadly stabbings over Labor Day weekend. It left 10 people dead, 18 injured, and both suspects dead. Ms. Hajdu says she made a commitment of work and resources when she met with the leaders of the First Nation on Tuesday. On the East Coast, the Newfoundland and Labrador government says the province recently saw the arrival of 76 Afghan refugees. The province says a flight landed in St. John's on Sunday. Staff from the Association for New Canadians is working to help settle individuals and families. The province says many of the new arrivals served alongside the Canadian Armed Forces in Afghanistan, and they deserve an embrace of freedom and peace. Turning to a major deal involving Air Canada, which has signed an agreement to buy 30 electric hybrid aircraft under development by a Swedish company. The airline also acquired a $5 million equity stake in Heart Aerospace. The ES-30 regional aircraft, which will be capable of carrying 30 passengers, is expected to enter service in 2028. Some good news for bird lovers. A new online atlas of bird migration has mapped out the routes of 458 bird species in the Americas. It draws from an unprecedented number of scientific and community data sources. The Bird Migration Explorer mapping tool, published today and launched by the National Audubon Society, is available for free to the public. Stuart McKenzie of Birds Canada says the tracking of bird movements will help conservation planners protect critical habitat. Back in the East, the Halifax-based satirical magazine Frank has announced its demise after more than 3 decades of publication. A notice on its website says the publishers, quote, regret to announce the death of Frank Magazine Atlantic. The website says the publication, which is distinct from the Ottawa-based magazine of the same name, has operated for 35 years. Stay with us. Forum Daily will be right back with a look at gamification and investing. Brendan Caldwell, director of Caldwell Securities Limited, will be joining us to unpack what the trends look like, who is being impacted, and potential long-term impacts. We'll have more on that after the break. As the investing world continues to grow in popularity for younger demographics, investors are being warned about the gamification of investing. Now, this comes as more and more young investors are entering markets for big gains in short time spans. And investing apps are continuing to evolve to make the user experience more intuitive and visually appealing. However, seasoned professionals in the investing world say such user-optimized business models might be encouraging risk-taking among investors. A recent report from Magnify Money found that more than half of young investors have regrets from last year. Well, joining us now to tell us more about this is Brendan Caldwell, director at Caldwell Securities Limited. Brendan, welcome back. So what exactly is it, and what does it look like in the world of investment?
Well, first thing about your intro, if young people don't have regrets from the past year, as I've said to you before, then they're not doing it right. About life in general, and that's the part of being young. But the gamification is really, like the word sounds, taking all of the know-how they've used to make Candy Crush so addictive and putting it on the investing apps, so that it has a similar look and feel and attractiveness that the video games have. And as we know, I mean, video games are addictive, and only more so in the generations since I was young enough to play them for hours on end. So what they've done of late is to take all of that technology and put it into something that involves real money. And the possibility for risk and indeed damage is considerable.
Now, that's really interesting, Brendan, because when we think about investments, it's a serious issue. You're investing your hard-earned money, and it usually isn't for short-term satisfaction. Isn't investing, from your perspective, for the long haul, for retirement, your future? What are your thoughts on this, Brendan?
Most people spend more time planning their vacation than they do their retirement. So I'm not against the democratization of information. I'm not, I would not say that experts, whoever they are, have all of the answers, and that investors, young or otherwise, should only get their ideas from people who have licenses or certifications. Young people have a wonderful advantage in that they are young and that they know things I simply do not. They know what the hot new app is. So they may be better off, for example, buying shares in Robinhood than they would be investing through Robinhood, or whatever the hot new thing is. So I do think that it is a serious business, and I do think that people should take the time, carefully weigh the information, and make a decision. It may not be the expert decision, but it might be a good decision notwithstanding, with enough of the right information.
Now, you mentioned a little earlier that the gamified trading may be increasing the risk-taking among investors. So tell us a little bit more about that. How likely is gamified investing stimulating risk-taking among investors?
Well, 100%. And it's not just the bells and whistles. I mean, that's why they have bells and whistles on one-armed bandits, the slot machines at casinos, because it intensifies the experience, and you want to get that buzz, that positive feedback with the whistles and the thing going off. So one historically kept putting the coins in, and now I guess however they do it with credit cards or credits or what have you. The really tricky bit for me is where these discount order-only execution firms actually provide you with free stock or free money to make your first few investments. Having had that described to me recently for the first time, that really does sound like the drug dealer giving you your first hit for free. That's the bells and whistles are one thing. This first time X number of trades, free money, that is I mean, that's how people have been getting other people addicted to things for generations. That's the tricky one.
All right, Brendan, looks like we've got just a quick 20 seconds left here, but if you could leave our viewers with just one message regarding gamified trading, what would it be?
Take as much information on board as helpful. Make decisions based on what you know, really know, that other people might not know because of your own experience, products that you use, information that you have, because of your profession, because of your age, because of your demographic, whatever it is, that will give you a much better advantage than the bells and whistles and the glitz. Go for substance over form.
All right, some great advice. Brendan, thank you again for your time today.
Thank you, Nima.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now it's time for our weekly market update with Catherine Murray, host of The Buck Stops Here. All yours, Catherine.
Thanks, Dima. Hello, everyone, and welcome to your weekly market recap. I'm Catherine Murray. Well, we continue to see very volatile equity markets in Canada as well as the United States. The big catalyst, of course, this week was the inflation reading in the United States coming in hotter than expected on the core front. So core CPI was 6.3%, up from 5.9% the previous month. And importantly, what that's really telling us is that outside of energy and food, so X energy and food, that's core inflation, you are continuing to see inflation rise and increase and spread across the economy. That caused investors to become very, very concerned that despite the efforts from the U.S. Federal Reserve and other central bankers around the world, that they're not able to tame inflation and that it is in fact spreading to other areas of the market, which of course we can feel when we are out purchasing goods and services. That's key as well. That sent the U.S. Dow Jones down by about 1,000 points or more, in fact, and really caused investors to take a little bit of a pause in terms of putting new money to work. Today, we are seeing U.S. markets marginally higher, the TSX down by about 0.6%, however, and we do seem to be on track for weekly losses. In terms of specific areas of the market, we are seeing WTI down by about 2.6%. You're seeing the U.S. yield curve flattening out. Remember, we get concerned if there's an inversion. It really tells you that, that investors are concerned about the economic outlook 10 years, 30 years down the road. So where longer term rates are lower than your short term rates. We're also seeing Bitcoin down by about 1.2%, a lot of volatility there. The US dollar is flat versus other major currencies. However, the Canadian dollar is lower versus the US dollar, and gold is down by about 2%. We have received a number of economic data points here today, specifically out of the United States. They're coming in a little bit mixed, so that's not too bad. But we did see industrial production in the United States lower than expected, a negative 0.2 versus a positive 0.2%. You're also, though, on the positive side, seeing jobless claims continuing to come in better than expected. Retail sales of the border better than expected as well. But stepping back, what's really on investors' minds is what will be the terminal rate for central bankers, the BOC as well as the U.S. Federal Reserve. Will it be 4%? Will it be 3%? What will it be? And where will we pause? And therefore, where will we find some stabilization? So that's the big debate right now. The bears would say in the United States that perhaps it's at 4%. Now, the bulls in the market will say, look, the U.S. Federal Reserve and the BOC can't continue to raise rates to the same degree or aggressiveness because they will cause, a deeper or longer recession. And that's really where the debate in the market and why you're seeing so much volatility stands. I'm going to do a shameless plug here, Nima. I did just interview Barry Allen, who is a veteran in fixed income markets. He's a Canadian, very well known. He's been in the business for decades, as I said. I did interview him for my show, The Buck Stops Here, which airs on Sunday morning. And we talk a lot about what he's seeing in the capital markets and fixed income, what he thinks the U.S. Federal Reserve and the BOC will likely do, given the fact that we are really starting to see a slowdown, and that is what he sees. But tune in Sunday for 9 a.m. There's a lot more details there. It's a half-hour show. So away from that, though, the question mark, of course, is whether or not we will and have seen peak inflation, and therefore the central banks will stop raising rates to the same degree. And of course, people sit on different sides of the fence. Rates have been so low for so long. It does impact negatively the seniors and the savers of the world. But at the same time, can the debt-laden countries really withstand higher rates, and can the hot housing markets withstand higher rates? And also, when you raise rates, it does put downward pressure on equity valuations. So a lot going on as it relates to the rate impact of assets and risk assets. Away from that, just a couple of stocks to mention. Love or Southwest Airlines, ticker there is LUV. They did raise their revenue. They're seeing some strong trends, so that's certainly a positive in terms of people getting back and wanting to travel. And also, in the same vein, Wynn Resorts, so out of Las Vegas, the stock's been upgraded over at Credit Suisse, saying that they are seeing some strong trends in Vegas. Also importantly here, Steel Dynamics, STLD is the ticker there. Positive pre-announcement. They're seeing some nice stability in autos, construction, and industrials. That's, of course, in the steel space. So positive there in terms of a read-through for the broader economy. In Canada, we are seeing the TSX seeing some weakness in energy, materials, and staples. Those are the larger decliners today. Nima, I'll leave it there. A lot to watch. Back to you.
All right, thanks for that, Catherine. Again, that was Catherine Murray, host of The Buck Stops Here, which airs on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern only on the News Forum Network. All right, stay with us. We'll have today's international headlines coming up after a short break. Thousands of mourners are spending hours in line to take just a few minutes to file past the coffin of Queen Elizabeth. The late monarch's coffin is lying in state inside a Parliament building. This with the line to pay respects now stretching 7 kilometers. The venue will be open 24 hours a day until Monday morning, and authorities have warned that mourners will have little time to rest. People in the line say they don't mind the wait. Well, as the war rages on between Russia and Ukraine, the presidents of both countries are each courting major allies today. This comes as they seek support in a war in which fortunes have tilted in recent days. Vladimir Putin met one-on-one with Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of a summit in Uzbekistan. In Kyiv, meanwhile, Volodymyr Zelensky met with the president of the European Commission. Ursula von der Leyen once more showed full commitment to Ukraine's cause, even though the country is still years away from joining the European Union. Meanwhile, Germany's economy minister says the group of 7 major economies are making moves to address China's position when it comes to trade. They have agreed to take a tougher, more coordinated stance toward trade with China. Robert Habeck briefed reporters on Thursday. This was after a 2-day meeting with fellow G7 officials east of Berlin. He said the discussions about China were part of a broader effort to ensure high international trade standards and to prevent Beijing from using its economic might to steamroll other nations. Finally, some hope of peace, at least temporarily, as a ceasefire between Armenia and Azerbaijan is holding. This comes following 2 days of fighting that killed 155 soldiers on both sides. The Secretary of Armenia's Security Council said the truce that was brokered thanks to international mediation took effect on Wednesday evening. Armenia's defense ministry said Thursday that the situation on the border with Azerbaijan was quiet and that no ceasefire violations were reported. Armenia and Azerbaijan traded blame for the violence. All right, turning to recent moves by the European Union's executive arm to address the growing presence of ransomware attacks. It is proposing legislation to force manufacturers to ensure that devices connected to the internet meet cybersecurity standards. The aim is to make the 27-nation bloc less vulnerable to attacks. The EU says a ransomware attack takes place every 11 seconds. The global annual cost of cybercrime was estimated at $5.5 trillion US in 2021. Russia's war in Ukraine has also raised concerns that European energy infrastructure could be targeted amid a global energy crunch. South of our border, U.S. President Joe Biden says a tentative labor agreement has been reached between railroads and union representatives. The deal averts a strike that could have been devastating to the American economy before the pivotal midterm elections. The two sides had been in negotiations at the U.S. Labor Department for 20 hours on Wednesday to hammer out a deal. A White House official says Mr. Biden made a key phone call to Labor Secretary Marty Walsh at 9 p.m. He told negotiators to consider the harm that a shutdown could cause. Tennis star Roger Federer says he is retiring. The 41-year-old Swiss player says his final appearance will be in London next week. This will be at an event run by his management company. Mr. Federer has won 20 Grand Slam titles, but he hasn't competed since Wimbledon last year. This is because of a series of knee operations. The news comes just days after the end of the U.S. Open, which was expected to be the last tournament for 23-time major champion Serena Williams. The founder of outdoor gear company Patagonia says the company is transferring all of its voting shares into a trust. It will be dedicated to fighting the environmental crisis and defending nature. The company is long known for environmental activism, and the announcement was made in a letter posted on the privately held company's website last night. The founder, Yvon Chouinard, said the 50-year-old company would transfer 100% of its voting stock to the Patagonia Purpose Trust, and 100% of its non-voting stock had been given to the Holdfast Collective. Lebanon is celebrating the victory of a female dance troupe from the country in the America's Got Talent competition show. Lebanese politicians and officials on Thursday rushed to congratulate the all-female dance troupe online. Many Lebanese, struggling with years of political and economic turmoil, saw the Maya's success as a rare glimmer of hope. This comes in a country struggling with a crippling economic crisis over the past 3 years. All right, I'm Nima Rajan, and that'll do it for your look at national and international news for today. Remember, for more news on demand, you could always visit our website, thenewsforum.ca, and be sure to follow us on our social media handles. We're available on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also watch all of our commentary programming and the interviews on the News Forum YouTube channel. Take care, Canada. We'll see you next time.